first guitar, starting out. So it was about 1985, 1986. I was walking home from school, and there was a street that took me straight home. Walk out of the back of school, go straight to my street. And there was a guitar sitting out of the garbage can on that street. And I was walking along, and it only had 3 strings on it, but I didn't know that would matter. And so I grabbed it and said, well, that'll be fun to bang on when I go home. And so I took it home. I didn't know how to I didn't care. It just makes a note. And so I'm gonna play with this thing. And so I took that home, and I was like trying to teach myself songs on this guitar that wasn't anywhere near in tune. And so I did that for like a year. And my sister had a really good friend from high school, and his name was Troy Jones, and he was playing, everybody knows Troy Jones, and he was playing drums in a band, and he came over to the house, and he had the drums, and they were zebra striped drums, and I was like, this is the coolest guy I've ever met in my life, because we're in the middle of like the hair band thing, and so he came over, and he's like, hey, you want to play drums? I was like, yeah, who gives a crap about that guitar I got? And, yeah, I want to play drums. And so I got uber into drums. And so I begged my mom and dad, you got to get me a drum set. Got to get me a drum set. Got to get me a drum set. And it was falling on deaf ears because they don't want drums in the house. And finally, my mom said, well, you know what? We won't get you drums. And this is before electric drums were like affordable and even a thing. But we'll get you a guitar. And I went, fine, I guess I'll play the guitar. Because the neighborhood was full of kids my age, but they were about 1 year older than me and up. And so, like 86, 87, they were all getting super into Rat and Dockin and all stuff like that. And they had guitars and stuff like that. And so I was the guy hanging out at their house and just wanting to play. I want to play with the guys, play with my friends. And I'm kind of like the flunky that's hanging out with I'm the young kid. I'm just like, whatever, get out of here. You don't understand what's going on. And so they all had like Memphis guitars and the GTXs and the pawn shop stuff, but I thought they were cool as hell, and so I'd go over there and strum on it and stuff, and I didn't know what I was doing because I had a guitar at home that had 3 strings on it, and nobody knows what's going on. My grandparents had cable. We didn't have cable. This was, during a time where you didn't have cable. My grandparents had cable. They had MTV, and so we'd always go and watch MTV at my grandparents' house. So we go in there, me and my sister, who's 8 years older than me, we'd beeline it to the TV room in my grandparents' house and turn on MTV, and we'd be there all day. And we're watching everything. It didn't matter what it was. It was Madonna, and then it was, Aerosmith, and then it was whatever. And it didn't matter. It's music. We wanted to hear it, and we wanted to see it, and the videos were cool. And I remember my sister leaving the room one time to go get like popcorn or whatever. And she came back in, and I'm watching Whitesnake's Here I Go Again. And it was brand new. It was like the world premiere video. Remember the world premiere with the globe? and I'm just sitting there as a 10-year-old kid, stupefied. I'm stupefied. I'm watching Tawny Katane on the Jaguars, and so like that. My sister came in and like looked at the screen and looked at me, and she's, what are you doing? This band's awesome, and that's the day that I said, I'm playing guitar. I can do that, because they get the chicks, and I find out later that she beat the crap out of David Coverdale, but that's how I started. It was really that juvenile. I just really wanted to be a part of that, or a part of the scene, and so I still had this stupid acoustic with 3 strings on it, and banging on it in my living room and my bedroom and stuff, and till my grandpa stepped in and said, my mom's dad jumped in and said, we need to actually get him like a real guitar, like a, because he's getting pretty serious about it. So the Florey's music, and they were closing up for the night. I remember that. They were turning on all the lights, and we're the pricks that show up at closing time. And it was Mike Flores and Jeff Logsdon still sitting around in there. And we walk in and, hey, we want to look at guitars. And they're like, well, they're over there. Because, they didn't know if we were serious or not. But next thing they know, they realized that we actually cared. And I said, I want to take lessons. I want to be able to do this and stuff. And so Jeff actually took me under his wing. And he was like, he grabbed the guitar that they were going to sell me. And he was playing all the sweet stuff on it. He's like, here, look, you can do this on this $50 guitar. You can do this. And so that's, and the rest went from there. I took lessons from Jeff forever. I mean, I think it was just under 7 years. I think it was 6 or 7 years. Because I really respected that. A person that actually really wanted to show another human being how to play. And Jeff taught me how to solder. I mean, it was like sometimes my guitar lesson wasn't even guitar. It was like he'd take me back into the back room. If I had a pot that was scratchy, he'd teach me how to fix it. If my jack went out, teach me how to fix it and stuff. And so that stems into what I do for a living. But no, Jeff, I can literally say he taught me everything I know. I know what I know because of Jeff, and he doesn't even realize that. Like Jeff probably would say he's told me that he thinks that I passed him up a long time ago, and I'm just playing what you showed me a long time ago. And so, no, there's no passing up Jeff. Jeff's a player. There's no passing up Jeff. But so then, at some point, you start wanting to play with other people. And so I was probably 3 years into learning, and I was in high school at this point, and we had a really good drummer in school. Everybody knew it, and his name was Matt Starman. And like literally, his gym shorts on his ass said Starman. Yeah. But he was like super into Rush. He was super into anything like King Crimson and stuff like that was like really difficult drums and stuff. And so I'm sitting there like the guy that is into the hairband stuff, and now you got this drummer that's into like way more intelligent stuff. And so I just wanted to be a part of that. And so I was like, hey man, you wanna be in my band? He's like, what band? I was like, I don't have one yet, but like you'll make two. It was literally like that. And so my mom somewhere has pictures of like the first time we ever played together in my basement and stuff, and I'm sitting there with my guitar like this cheesy grin, and he's sitting there like, because he was like 2 years older than me, and so I was the dork, but then you can only do that so much before you need a bass player. Now you need a bass player. Well, I went to church. My dad was a minister, and I went to church, and one of the deacons in the church, his son played upright bass at the high school. And so I was like, well, do you play electric bass? And so he went out and actually got an electric bass. Pretty much, he'll never admit it, that he got it to play with us, but he did. His name is Micah Perkins. What's up, Micah? And he's a science teacher down in like Kentucky or Tennessee now. But Micah was like better than all of us because he knew music theory and stuff. And so now I'm just the guy who bangs on the guitar, and he's like, well, that doesn't really go that way, and stuff. And then you got a drummer that's just better than you. But that was my first band, and we played in the basement just constantly. We had like 3 practices a week, 4 practices a week, for nothing. We had no gigs, we had no prospects, we had no nothing. But we would do that, and but little did we know that it was turning us really, really tight into when we did. And so gigs started coming up, but then Micah went off to college. He went off to college, and so then we need somebody who can hang with him. so we got a guy named Rob Herlihy who was also in college, and you gotta keep in mind, I'm still a freshman in high school, and there was so from that first band, we ended up starting to hang out with a lot of other people and hanging out for cookouts on the weekends and stuff. And so what had happened is that you'd hang out at the cookouts, and then they'd be like, hey, I play guitar and you play bass and whatever, and you'd end up with a band. It would be around for like 6 months, then you'd kill it. It all came down to like who had gigs booked. Like, hey, I know this person over at the VFW, and they want to give me a booking for New Year's. And so they would say, well, who wants to play guitar and stuff? Because we all kind of knew the same tunes, and so it all came down to who wasn't doing something serious at the time. And so there literally is a 4-year space where like 6 bands happened, and I don't remember the names. I don't remember the order. I don't remember anything about it. I do remember everybody that was there. It was Glenn Denham, Brian Strack, it was Roland Millington, it was of course Aaron Schultz, Ernie, the most hard on himself drummer in the world. He's a ton. But he's just so hard on himself, you know. But man, what a ton. And Drew Barnes and CJ Smith. CJ was he was in that band called the Lost Boys from Springfield that were super popular for a while. But we played with him, and that was just kind of this whole period of time where it just came down to who booked what, and we're going to throw a band together. We're going to give it a name, because it had to have a name for the sign. But I honestly don't remember all the names, and I don't remember all the stuff, just because I don't think any of those guys would either. You know, we just did it. You know, it's just rock and roll, man. Just go out and play some gigs, play some tunes, have some fun. Because every Friday or Saturday, no matter what, we always ended up at Glenn's house. And that was like the hub. You always show up at Glenn Dunn's house, and he's got a bonfire going out back. He's got the grill going, and that's where you went. And next thing you know, you got a band. We're playing for the next 6 months. And that was kind of how the whole thing went. So that whole period of time is a blur. But then Mitch started getting serious on us, and he wanted to put together a band. And it was me and Drew Barnes, and then Aaron Schultz, who I already told you is a ton. And we came up with this band called Rude Awakening, and which was similar stuff that we had already been playing, but it was a lot more serious. Like we're gonna get the good Madison gigs, we're gonna get the PMC gigs, we're gonna get the whatever gigs, and so that was very much Mitch's baby. And I know you did a video with Mitch. He may recount this different, you know. I was at the Rude Awakening was around like 6 years. I was only there like the first year and a half. I was there at the beginning, and they ended up getting a lot of really good musicians to replace me. Like Harley Donahoe came in, and Justin Robbins came in, and so about a year into Rude Awakening, I had sent a message to like back before we had Messenger, it was like an email to Gary Horry, and because I know Frankenstein was they were turning down gigs, like reunion gigs, for decent money, and it was driving some of the guys in the band crazy because they couldn't all line up on it and stuff. And so I just sent Gary a blanket text or email and said, if there's ever a Frankenstein gig that you're doing, don't not do it because Ryan won't do it or Bob won't do it, or, you know, don't turn it down because of that. So I think I can come in and fill in for either one of those guys, which at the time didn't sound arrogant to me. Hindsight being 2020 is extraordinarily arrogant. And so I said, if Bob doesn't want to do it, I'll do it. So like 4 or 5 months go by, and Gary shows up at a Rude Awakening show. And at the time, Gary never went out, like ever. Like, so if he showed up, everybody wondered why he's there. Like, you know, like he's here. Like, did somebody steal his car? Like somebody, you know. It was kind of like that. It was, did somebody do something? Because Gary's showing up. It took a lot to get him off the couch. And so he came to a Rude Awakening show. And come to find out later, he was basically headhunting me. He was checking me out. Who's this guy that sent me this arrogant message? I want to see, let's see what you got. And I didn't know that at the time. And he's admitted that later. I want to see who's got the stones to say those words that you said. And so then it was like a month later, he hit me up and said, hey, anybody who's got a mouth like that, I'm putting together a band. It's going to be Pete Ramsey from Frankenstein. It's going to be me. It's going to be 3-piece. You know, you've been big talking. You think you can do both? And I was like, yeah, of course I can. Yeah, I can do both. And he's like, all right, come on over. And so next thing you know, we started this band called Braille. And the whole point of Braille was to be a 3-piece slammer. You know, it was to prove what you could do with 3 guys if you had the right 3 guys. And so I'm walking into there not knowing either one of these guys other than casually. I'm walking into the first practice and they basically tell me what their mission statement is. We're going to do this, you know, and I'm the one that's the new guy. But I have a rhythm section that's played together since they were teenagers, you know, and so you get away with murder as a guy like me when you got a rhythm section that can't fail. And, so Braille ended up being around 5 years, and we did exactly what we set out to do. I mean, it all really did happen. We weren't out there to do anything but to prove a point that 3 guys can blow your mind. And when you have the other guys like that, they really can blow your mind. And so we did that. And then Pete had to step out. He had some, without going into Pete's episode, Pete had to step out. He was, you know, he had some, got to find the right word. He had legal reasons he needed to step out. And so we ended up getting Steve Barnes on bass. And so then we had the advent of a singing bass player. So now we got a bass player that can sing. We got a drummer that can sing. We got a guitar player that can sing. What else you need, you know? I mean, and so Steve came in, took over the job perfectly, and so we hung on for about another year and a half or so, and then Shannon Wolf had quit the Shake. And so Gary was kind of looking for something else, and so he took the job with the Shake to replace Shannon. So we played like another 6 months, played out the rest of our gigs that we already had booked. And it was Mikey Thomas from Megasonics, who's a stud. That guy shows up with a kick and a snare, and you think he's got a 7-piece kit. It's incredible. I cannot brag on Mike Thomas enough. I mean, we were playing like Rush songs. He shows up with a kick and a snare, a hi-hat, crash, and a ride. That's it. And you'd believe Neil Peart sitting back there. It was amazing. I can't brag on Mikey enough. And then if Mike couldn't do the gig, Steve Baker, who was also in Megasonics later, Steve's a ton, but he actually shows up with a 9-piece kit, you know. But so we had like this embarrassment of wealth of drummers that were willing to come in to take Gary's spot, because I think they just wanted to be there, you know. They just wanted to be there with this thing that we were doing. All right, so Mike got a hold of me right out of Braille. It was about the same time that Braille died. He got a hold of me right after that and said, 3 of us are leaving the Shake. We're going to go do this other band. I told Rod that you're going to be the right person to replace me. And so I so I kind of agreed to it sight unseen, just because the Shake was everybody knew that Shake was a good band to be in. There was always crowds, the money was good, everything about it's good, and the Shake's sort of like Menudo. They got new people all the time, and it's always Rod, but he always seems to find such good players to be around him, and so I agreed to do it. And then Mike caught up with me, and he brings in, if you remember the old Jewel cases, the CD cases, the super thin ones, you know, like the Burn CDs. He came up to me with a stack that tall. And he goes, all right, so here you go. If you're going to join up, here's the set list. And I go, well, how many songs you guys play in a night? He goes, well, about 40. I go, how many songs are in that stack? And he goes, about 400. I go, well, which ones are we playing at the next gig? Because it was like 2 weeks before they had a gig. And he goes, well, 40 of those. And I was like, yeah, but which 40? He goes, 40 of those. Like, no, we have a master list. And Rod just calls them out. You have to know all these songs. And he might call them, he might not. But you have to know 400 songs to play 40 Friday. Welcome to the Shake. And so I literally, for the first time ever, took like 3 days off work and sat at home with a CD player. It's before YouTube or guitar lessons were there and stuff, and rewind play, learning all these Shake songs, and had to come to my first gig. I'll never forget that. It just, how many of those? 40. Oh my God, welcome to the Shake. But, and there was, Skinny, I mean, you can back me up on this, is that you never really knew what was going to get called out. You had Rod had laminated lists from who knows when. They were covered in who knows what, and just lists that he put out in front. And the order meant nothing. Nothing meant anything about this list other than to jog his memory. But we didn't know what was going to come out. You know, so if we're playing an instant replay in Pekin, or we're playing a wedding, or we're playing a cat party, or we're playing whatever, he would just call them. Now, there was always like those core 20 that worked no matter what, and we're going to use those no matter what. But you had to know 400 songs to get through a night, and he would, like a year later, hey, play this. And you learned it a year ago, and like, give me a second. No, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it just, you had to know it now. And so what I took from the Shake is that was one of the biggest lessons in how to learn songs as fast as you can and be believable. And just like I go back to the old statement: necessity breeds genius. When you don't have a choice, 1, 2, 3, 4, you got to perform now. And there's 500 people there. You got to perform now. That's what I took from the Shake. And so that was me and Kenny Peak and Pete Ramsey came in right after that, and we did it. We just without thinking about it. It's just the whole blindly doing what you have to do thing, you know. It just, and there's like, I tell everybody, you don't play in the Shake, you survive the Shake. You know, Mike would say that, Ryan would say that, everybody, Kevin Hine would say that. You know, there's no, you played in the Shake and you had a great time the whole time. No, you lived to tell about it. And I know you want the stories. I'm not going to do it, but it was such a fun time though, because that was also during a period of time where the job I was doing wasn't making me a lot of money, and so really that gig, that paid for TVs when you needed them, that paid for your kid's Christmas when you needed it, that birthday presents, that really did. And so it was like a really awesome supplemental income, and you had fun doing it. And not many people can say that they went to work that weekend and had a great time doing it, hung out with their friends. Not many people can say that, you know. So at the end of the day, I look at it I look back at it kind of fondly, but I look back at it and I chuckle because I do remember the fact that it's a literal miracle that we're all still here. So I was in the Shake a number of years, and some situations came up, and I had to leave. It was time to walk away from music in general for a while, and I mean like not retire, but I'm just not playing anymore. And so I did. It was like 2008. I walked away from music completely. I wheeled all my stuff into a closet, closed the door, and walked away. And I was like that for about almost a year. With the occasional fill-in, I would fill in on guitar for Megasonics here and there. Or I'd fill in on singing for Megasonics here and there. Seemed like it was always the Megasonics that would get me off the couch. Come be Kevin for the night or be Dave for the night. And but do little one-off things. But then, yeah, I had to walk away for a little while. But it was during that time that the year had turned, and I'm collecting dust on the couch, and I get a call from Gary Horry, and he's wanting to piece together another band. And it kind of sounded Braille-like, except instead of 3, it was going to be 4. And then, so I kind of hem-hawed the thing, but they were building the entire band around a singing guitar player. And I was the only one they knew that was not completely invested in something else. And like I said, I'm sitting on the couch collecting dust. And so, after a little bit of talk, I agreed. And that's what ended up becoming the Unhandsome Devils. And so, the Unhandsome Devils, when it started, was Dirk McCoy on guitar also. And it was Ryan on bass, which is where he wanted to be. And then Gary was playing drums and singing. And the whole point of that band was there was a big void in bands that were the harder rock genre at the time. At the time, most of the bands were doing the pop thing, the country thing and stuff. And so there was this huge void that was created at the time that we needed to fill. And so so I came into it, and as a singing guitar player. And so me and Gary did all the singing for the band. At some point, about, I want to say it was a year in, Ryan, he wanted it to be heavier than it was. And I think he thought it was going to be heavier than it was, because he already had an outlet for everything else. And I think he wanted this to be his outlet for the heavier stuff. So he bailed. We got a hold of my friend Dan Tremblay from up in LaSalle. Literally, just to talk about Dan, literally the best hang you'll ever have. Dan is the least bothersome bandmate you can even have. Like, hey, we got a gig this week and it's gonna pay you $2, and he just goes, cool. You know, just like, or we got this gig this week and it's gonna pay you $1,000. Cool. Dan, bless his heart, love you, Dan. You couldn't ask for a better bandmate, because it was just, he was there to work and it didn't matter the rest of the parts. And so Dan replaced Ryan on bass, and then Dirk got him and his wife got pregnant with twins, and so it was time he needed to go, because he was about to be really busy out of nowhere. And so I was friends with this younger kid, big time shredder, and said, hey, I know you always play original music, but you rip. It'd be super fun to have you in the band, because we're about to go from 4-piece to 3-piece. What do you think? And he said, yeah, sure, man, in typical fashion. And that was TJ Duckweiler. And he'd never played in a cover band before. He didn't understand it. He didn't understand that you play for 4 hours and somebody gives you money. Like, I had to explain that to him, because he'd done nothing but play his entire life and never get a cent. And so I'll never forget the first time, like the first night we played. He goes up there and just burns the house down. The entire we were in Dwight, and there's like other guitar players there from up that area, and they're just TJ just murdered him. And at the end of the night, I come up and hand him money, and he looks at it and counts it, and he just starts laughing. He goes, "For that? For what I just did?" I go, "Yeah, that's sorry. It's usually more than that." And he's like, "Wow, yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. This place is great." He just loved being in a cover band after that. So I think I feel like I did a bad thing. Like, he shouldn't settle for that. Like, I wish you would just have higher standards than getting paid for playing, because he's so much better than that. But no, TJ came in and blew minds. And so there was this period of time in the Devils where it was that people were showing, like, if we went to a gig at a bar, there's 200 people there, 120 of them are there to see TJ, you know, and we were all fine with it. You know, because bless his heart, the guy's just amazing, you know, and just has that aw shucks, gorsh sort of, you know, what am I thinking of? What's the black and white Andy Griffith sort of golly, you know, sort of thing about the whole thing.
Innocence.
Huh?
Innocence,
right. He had an innocence, and it was beautiful because he hadn't been jaded yet, you know, like, we're all jaded. We'd all been around so long, and he hadn't been there yet. He was having a blast. He was making more money in 4 hours than he made all week at his job, you know what I mean? And so he's having a blast to play his guitar, you know. And so, oh, dude, we loved it. And so that's what happened with the Devils, is that ended up next leveling the music. Is, okay, we have this weapon. What do we do with it? So that's when the Avenged Sevenfold showed up. And that's when, you know, stuff that we have this, let's utilize it, you know, showed up. But then TJ had an opportunity. He decided that he wanted to go out to GIT, Musicians Institute out in LA. And so I helped move him out there to LA. And he had huge opportunities out there and crazy things. He's done 2 Warped Tours and stuff. And so I couldn't be happier about TJ. He's my dear friend and will be forever. And there's nothing about that era of the Devils that I would ever change. But then, but he moved away, and so then we felt naked again. Like, now we're a 3-piece again, and so we did. We played about 3, 4, 5 months as a 3-piece until I came and told the guys, dude, now I feel naked. So that's when we just said, let's just bring something in, change it up, you know, do something new with this band. It doesn't have to be a guitar player. Doesn't have to be a keyboard player. Doesn't have to be a xylophone player. Doesn't matter. Let's just change it up. That way we all stay interested. And it had become kind of obvious that we needed to bring Mitch back in. So that's when Mitch joined back up with the Devils, or joined the Devils officially. And man, we went like another 5 or 6 years with Mitch. And we played a lot of awesome shows, man. We played all the Rockin' Skulls. We opened to so many national acts. We opened a Trickster and Autograph and what was it, Femme Fatale? I told off the whole
Lee's sister.
Yeah, I told off the whole band. They love me. You know, bigger show. You know, like cool things like that. We did a lot of cool stuff. But like Frank Hannon came to town and we did a whole weekend with our band. You know, it gets up with my band and plays Tesla songs, you know, and that was super cool. And that was all during the Mitch, me, Gary, and that was when John was in the band. John Massalia had joined the band and replaced Dan, because he went country. He went and joined a country band. Yeah. Love you, Dan. But, yeah, that was during that time. And then, so at some point, John he had like other opportunities and stuff, and so that Pete had been riding the pine for 8 or 9 years. Pete Ramsey had been riding the pine. Kind of was wanting to get back out and playing again, and he didn't really realize that he wanted to do that until he did a fill-in for John. We had a gig, John couldn't do it, and I said, hey, Pete's talking about maybe playing here and there, and so Pete came out and played, bug hit him, he's in. And so then John had left, Pete came in, and so we played out the rest of the Unhandsome Devils with Pete there. Okay, so the Unhandsome Devils was coming to an end. Mitch had had a surgery on his neck where they went in through the front and they disrupted his vocal cords, and so he couldn't sing anymore, at least at the time. And didn't really have a time frame on when he would ever be able to do it again. And so Gary had kind of decided that this was the time. And we've been around 10 years. That's the longest any of us have ever had a band. This was the time to kind of gracefully leave. And so we did. We killed the Unhandsome Devils without really ever discussing that with Mitch and stuff. And so that's why we've done some Devils. We're going to do a couple Devils reunion gigs this year because Mitch is getting his voice back, and that's the only fair thing to do. But it just seemed like everything, we didn't have a choice. It had to happen. And so then I kind of took that time, because when it happened, it was, I was playing a lot of acoustic gigs and stuff, and so I just kind of took that time to focus on, I had so many places getting a hold of me to do acoustic gigs that I don't even know how I can have a full band anyway. I got all these bookings. I'm going to have to tell my band, I can play like 1 weekend a month and stuff because I have this gig and this gig and this gig and this gig. And so I kind of took that time to focus on acoustic gigs and maybe look at that as an avenue of something I hadn't done. I'd done before, but I hadn't done a lot of before. And then Joey Prater and J.L. Prater had gotten a hold of me about playing guitar in The Road Less Traveled. And they were doing stuff I never played in my life. I mean, like Africa. I mean, they were the cool tunes. And but they did a lot of acoustic gigs too, so it was kind of one of those things where I said, just let me know when you want 5 people instead of 2 or 4. You know, I'll come in as that, because I'm pretty busy between my work and acoustic gigs, so I'll do what I can. But what a cool set list they were doing. But then Gary and Pete and Tommy Edwards and Brian Carroll and George Herbst were putting together a band with Ryan Rose. And Ryan had decided after like a practice and some banter that it just wasn't for him, wasn't his thing. And so Gary had come to my work and said, okay, Ryan's bowing out, it's not his thing, you want to come and do it? It'd be great, it's another singing guitar player, you know, we're going to have 6 singers, you know, for God's sakes, and which is huge. And then Ryan had gotten a hold of me and said, "Yeah, you should take my spot." I don't know if it was like a Christian guilt thing, like here do this so like they don't get too mad at me. Like I don't want to do it, but I already got your replacement. And might have been that, I don't know what it was. He just didn't want to do it, and so after a little bit of thought, I agreed to join it, and so that ended up being the band that I'm in now, which is Revel in Red. Sorry. So Revel in Red is a 6-piece band that is really, really focused on doing the songs that we've all wanted to do, but didn't have all the components to do it. You know, we didn't have a keyboard player. We didn't have a 4-part harmony. We didn't have a whatever. And so we're kind of playing a greatest hits of songs that we wish we could have done this way. So it's kind of that whole sky's the limit sort of thing. And we have to be a little careful sometimes to not overdo, like, hey, we want to do this, and it's crazy just because we have all the components to do it. Because we have to remember that people need to actually want to come and see us, you know. So, but it's been incredible. I've been able to play. I've known Brian Carroll years. Never gotten to play with him. What a nice guy. What a fun guy. George, I've loved George. That's all I can say about that. I just love George. And then Tommy, Bubblegum Jack, give me a break. I mean, a guy can sing anything. And then me, Pete, and Gary. So we have kind of this advantage of we have a band within a band, and that's what Brian will always probably say about it. He said it before. We have the Unhandsome Devils inside this other band. And so when it comes down to it, we have this inside of this. And so when you're going to learn songs, there's 3 guys that you don't even have to worry about, because we all know who's going to play what when. We don't have to think about each other. So then it makes a 6-person band a lot easier, because now you're making everything, you're just molding the rest of it. And that's the advantage we have. Gary, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Me and Gary and Pete have played together the better part of 21 years. And so I can tell you, without looking, I can do this and grab his stick out of the air, because I know when it's in the air. I can feel it, you know. It's because give me a break. The guy's a juggler that happens to play drums, you know. Or Pete, I know what he's going to do, when, and it's really been a beautiful thing. I've been really, really blessed to have played with a really high caliber of talent in every phase of what I've done. And I just happen to be the lucky guy that gets to partake in that. And, you know, and then you got a bunch of other guys that have to deal with me. You know, they slum it with me. But I've been so lucky, and it's but to get real, not for lack of trying. I mean, I tried to put myself in all these situations. I really, there was no just floating around and you end up in this situation, you end up in this situation. I really did put in a lot of work to try to be there and try to be better through every situation. And I think that's an important thing, because I think sometimes people just think we're going to go from this and this and this and this and this, and that's all lateral moves. Excuse me. I've always been trying to make it better, and let's do this new cool thing. Let's do this new cool thing. Or it doesn't even have to be better. It has to be just different. I've never played this song before. I've never played Oh Sherry in my life. I bet you I could tell you 5 times I heard it on the radio. But I've played it 20 with the band, you know what I mean? And so, but it's awesome. It's the whole out of your comfort zone thing. I'm a big advocate for that. You know, the whole part that I skimmed through in the beginning. That's a comfort zone thing. You get bored with that. And it's just, and so I've been really, really blessed to be playing with people that have challenged me to be better. People that I grew up looking up at, or looking up to, Jeff Logsdon, number 1. He was my only guitar teacher. He was my mentor through things that didn't even relate to guitar. All day, he will always be number 1 on every list that I ever throw out until the end of eternity. Love you, Loggy. Because I wouldn't be doing anything, literally anything I'm doing today if it wasn't for him. Gary Wolfer doesn't get mentioned enough. fantastic player. Literally thinks that he's terrible. You know, he thinks that he's terrible. Fantastic player, great singer. No, you know, freaking Wolfer, Mike Lane. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people bring up Mike. For one reason and one reason alone, Mike is really good at getting you excited about what you're doing, about what he's doing, about what he's good at getting you excited about just playing music. And never mind the fact that he's a fantastic guitar player. I mean, never mind all that. He's doing really well in Florida right now. But Mike, he's like the advocate for everybody. You know, he's everybody's cheerleader. You know, I'll give Mike that. Tony Baxter goes without saying. So when I was taking lessons at Flores, Tony was also a teacher. He was you know, in the other room and stuff. But Tony was the only person that played more Dokken than I did back then. I liked Dokken too much, and Tony likes Dokken way too much. But he was super into that. Moulton, give me a break. Bob Moulton. I'm so happy that he is so happy where he is in life right now. That's a guy that I never realized that I'd be so happy to not see him as much as I do, because he's doing what he wants to do. And he found what he found important in life. Chad Cook. When I was coming up, Chad was the utilitarian guitar player. He's out there. He's not going to blow your mind with solos, but man, he was having a ball. The guy was having a ball. He was like Eddie Van Halen. Name the last concert you saw Eddie Van Halen not smiling at. That's Chad Cook. The guy was having a ball doing what he was doing. He's a short guy and he's bouncy, and I just envied the whole bounciness of it. Just like, man, it's a lot of energy, and I was like 5 years younger than him. He's just so bouncy, you know. I always looked up to Chad just because he played all the different angles. He was the sound guy for the band that he's playing in tonight. And that was back before iPads. You had to go out to the board and then come out, you know. And he'd always have like this perfect mix, and you couldn't figure out how, you know. Gary Horry, without question. Literally the drummer that nobody can take their eyes off of. I played in 21 years worth of bands with him, and I am completely calm in the fact that nobody has ever looked at me while he's playing. I'm not there. He's the only person there. He's a juggler that happens to play drums, you know, and it goes without saying, and he can sing as good as he can play, and really, I do credit him with, he's the one that busted me out of what seemed like a situation that was never going to change. You know, he hit me up, hey, why don't you come over here and try this? You cocky little kid. You know, I mean, that's where he went with it. So, yeah, I credit Gary big time. Pete, of course, Frankenstein, Ryan Rose. Oh my God. Ryan, actually, I heard about Ryan about 3 years before I ever met him. This is funny. You want stories? I had heard about, because he was the other singing guitar player around here. It seemed like there was only 2 of us, although I know there was like 50 of us. But in our genre, we were the 2. And I kept hearing his name, and kept hearing his. So when you're like a 15-year-old kid, you're just like, well, whatever. Let's see this guy. Let's see if he's any good. So I ended up going to a Frankenstein show, like JJ's or something. And you gotta understand, I've been playing in bars since before I could drive, and these places would just let me in, you know, because they saw me play there the weekend before. They're like, yeah, go on in. So anyway, I remember going and seeing Frankenstein, and he's playing, and I didn't even realize who it was. I'm just like, man, this guy's good. And, oh yeah, that's Ryan Rose. I'm like, oh, him. And I'm just like, hey, he's all right. And here we are, flash forward, here we are, like 30 years later, and we're like the best friend. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was the thing, is that I wanted so bad to not like him. You couldn't help it. I just loved him. Like, dang it, you're cool. Crap, you're awesome. Rhino. You know, I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. Mark Chatterton. First time I ever saw Mark Chatterton play. I mean this. Take my man card away. It borderline on made me get a little misty. That guy bends notes in a way that other people don't. And I don't remember where I was. We were playing like a multi-band show together, and he was the guitar player in one of the bands, like before us. We're waiting, and he's up there in his coveralls, and I don't think he even had a T-shirt on, like, you know what I mean, like Farmer Ted, you know what I mean? And he's up there left-handed as hell, and he's bending the hell out. He's about to break that Strat in half. And I remember just being mesmerized by him. I'm supposed to be like loading up my gear and getting set up for our set, and I'm just stupefied by this dude that is just he's not dazzling me with anything except just the fact that he sounds so awesome playing guitar. You know what I mean? I don't need a billion notes. The guys who sit there and fly, I get it. You're fast, awesome. He would hang on to one note for like 16 seconds. And at like second 14, you're like, no, I'm not crying. No, that's something in my eye. No. Mark. Yeah. Lynn Garrett. I don't even know if I have to say much more than that. Lynn rips my arms off and beats me with them. Lynn's amazing. Lynn does everything that I don't know how to do. He has every skill that I don't possess. And if you ask Lynn, he might actually say that about me, because he says that all day, Shredder, and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but you do everything else better. You know, quit being nice to me. No, Lynn, all day. Just to name a few, yeah, I looked up to everybody. Like I said, I'm always the young guy in everything, so I looked up to everybody because everybody was there before me, and just mesmerized by stuff, because I lived in my own little world for a long time, playing in the basement and stuff, and then all of a sudden I get thrown into the pool and told to swim with everybody else who's a better swimmer than me, or has already been there swimming for a few years before I even got there.